You're muted, Irina. How did that happen?
No.
Don't know. Oh, well, welcome to the Energy Realities, and Irina Slav, the great Irina Slav, is back.
She's unmuted now.
Yeah, I think I unmuted. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thanks, Stu.
Yeah.
So, as you already know, this is the Energy Realities podcast with Tammy Nemeth. How are you today, Tammy?
I'm doing well, thank you. We had sunshine yesterday here in the UK, but it's all gone now. So,
at least we had a day to appreciate it. It's nice. And we have David Blackmon in Texas.
Yes,
How's
it's
the
wonderful
weather
day
in Texas?
It's just lovely. Everything's beautiful here. My granddaughter volleyball team qualified for nationals yesterday, so I'm pig and slop today.
Well done. Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And Stu Turley, where are you today, Stu Turley?
I'm still in Oklahoma today, but I'm leaving for Texas tomorrow. So you got to love that.
You travel a lot.
You do.
Unfortunately,
you pay for
yes.
your own fuel.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm okay.
You driving on the E15, Stu?
Oh, heck no. But I'm getting a Ford 350. I'm looking to pick it up, but it's going to be a 20-year-old Ford 350 because I do not want any of the new electronics that shut your car down and drive back to the dealer. You got to love those patents.
Is it a diesel?
Yeah.
I am going to be getting a diesel. Thank you. So I can grow my own hemp.
There you go. There you go. Man with a plan.
What's that deal? I saw some headlines about a kill switch, like the car wouldn't let you drive if it thinks you're incapacitated in some way.
It is a patent that Ford has.
But they're talking about it now, putting it in new cars.
Yep.
And I think
2027 is supposed to be when it goes into effect.
So if you have an accident and you really need to go to the hospital urgently, and you're not in a stable psychological state because you just had an accident, you can't do it because your car wouldn't let you.
Yep.
That's nice.
I'm not sure if this commenter is talking about us or Ford Motor Company, Russia Nazi terrorist organization.
I really don't think so. I think that's spam. Anyway, today we're talking about lots of things, but I would like to start with the news. If you haven't heard it, that the city of Amsterdam has banned all public advertising of meat, like chicken nuggets, cruises, air travel, and petrol cars, because they want to be net zero by 2050, and that's part of their efforts. And the parties that pushed for this ban include a party called the Green Left Party, like one word, Green Left Party, and something called Party for the Animals. I wrote on Substack about this today. And they're very happy with the results. Even though meat advertising constitutes like 0.1% of total advertising spend for public advertisements in Amsterdam. And what the BBC called fossil fuel related products advertising is like 4% of total advertising, but they're cutting emissions by discouraging people from eating meat. Now, tell me, how many of you have ever decided to eat chicken nuggets or a steak based on a billboard you've seen on your way to somewhere?
I can't even. I don't know. I might have in the 80s, in the early 80s when that was the main form of advertising. Yeah, I might have, but I used to love chicken McNuggets until I found out what they really were, so I quit eating them.
They're not really chicken.
Well, no, they're kind of chicken, sort of.
Oh, yeah. But this news report and the fact that the city authorities have approved it, okay, they're crazy in the Netherlands. But I started thinking about how everyone is watching the Middle East now and oil prices, and they're not paying much attention to what the climate activists are doing. So, do you think there could be a very, very welcome window for them to push these sorts of decisions, not just in the Netherlands, but elsewhere as well? Never let a good crisis go to waste and this sort of thing.
Absolutely. But in the Holland, they've been trying to do this for a long time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's been other cities that have adopted this a few years ago. I think it really started after 2019 when you had all the Fridays for Future student activists and Just Stop Oil people and stuff. I forget what the Dutch equivalent is, but they did. I think Haarlem, which is one of the kind of suburb cities of Amsterdam, they did that there first, and then I'm not surprised that they're doing this because it's basically like with tobacco advertising where they figure they can just take it away from the public idea, and therefore people will go and perhaps not buy meat or do whatever because they don't see it. It's not being advertised. So I know it's odd,
Doesn't
smoking
work
is
like
one thing,
that.
but eating is different.
Exactly.
But they're really pushing this idea that you should just stay at home. You should in Holland, you ride your bike, of course, because it's easy and it's safe or whatever. But don't travel, don't drive. If you're going to do anything, take transit and whatever. So this fits in, of course, with the larger narrative. And I think you're right. It's never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
And they're doing not the advertising ban, but I know there's jurisdictions in the United States and Canada and the UK who've been trying to bring this up at the local level. So I'd be more concerned about what's happening at this local level, at the city level, than just what's happening at the larger federal or state level.
Yeah, because they do it at the local level. Yeah.
Yes,
Go
they
on,
do,
David.
and that's in the United States. This is it's a really rapidly growing movement. We already have Marxist radicals in control of Chicago and New York City, two of the three largest cities, and now a Marxist radical who's not even a native of this country is the odds-on favorite to become the new mayor of Los Angeles, where they're building bike lanes all over the place now. Despite the
In
fact that
LA.
almost nobody rides a bike on the streets in LA. But despite the statistic that the city acknowledges that for every bicycle that goes by on a city street, 10,000 cars go by in the meantime.
Yeah.
10,000 to 1 differential, and they're building bike lanes to slow traffic down. It's an intentional effort to make driving almost impossible in the city, and they've done it in other big cities. Hell, Austin did it 20 years ago, downtown Austin. And, this is all a part of the same movement. I just for everyone's edification to know how significant Netherlands getting to net zero will be. I looked it up, and Grok tells me that the Netherlands percentage of global man-caused CO2 emissions is 0.3% of global emissions. So if they get to net zero, it will mean a zero change in global temperatures between now and 2050.
It's a rounding error. Yeah.
It's and not even a rounding error. I mean, it's just a joke is what it is. And same thing. We've talked about that with the UK's big effort with Ed Miliband. It's same kind of thing. Anyway,
but
go ahead.
The cost to the consumers, David, for a rounding error is dramatic.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And they're obviously trying to turn the whole country into a 15-minute city, which will be everyone's life expectancy at the end of the day, about 15 minutes. So,
well, it's also in alignment with the larger EU policies, right? So the EU has a directive, and then the different members have to transpose it into their own laws. And so this is just another way for Holland to be sort of pursuing the EU directive within its jurisdiction. And it's been the Dutch activist groups that have been so strong in litigating against oil and gas companies and trying to force courts to make them take Scope 3 emissions into account and whatnot. So, yeah.
Every time
There-
I hear
it's a
that
total-
term, I laugh. It makes me laugh out loud. Scope 3 emissions. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not
we're
funny
off to a
that-
rousing start.
No, Patrick is asking, what are the Dutch advertising instead? Museums, Patrick. They're advertising their museums, which is actually great. I'd rather see an ad for a museum than fast food. But the reason behind it is questionable.
Right.
Exactly.
And of course, that's consistent with the effort by the same green community to turn the whole continent of Europe into one big tourist attraction.
Yeah.
But it already
But they don't want
is.
the tourists.
But they don't
And
want
they
the
don't
tourists
want
either.
tourists. Well, they're not getting any with all these jet fuel prices lately.
Oh my God.
Although there was an article in the Daily Mail this morning about, I think it was some Italian towns that are quite picturesque that were overrun with tourists or something.
Yeah.
And today or yesterday or something, and the locals are very upset about it. And we saw there was a lot of protests in Spain over the past couple of years about tourism there and the expat community and whatnot. But instead, they just naturalized, what is it, 500,000 illegal
500,000,
migrants?
yeah.
So not sure. So
Gave
they would
them-
prefer
No.
that over tourism that brings in revenue?
Right. Yeah. It's just
It's
crazy, man.
It's
No,
really
we were in
horrible.
Barcelona last year when some of those protests were happening, and I mean, it was a big deal.
The
And I don't
protests.
blame them. We've been in Italy too, in cities that were so crowded. In the Tuscany region, we were in Montepulciano once, and at a time when it was just overrun. I guess a cruise, a bus tour had stopped in this little mountaintop town, and it was just completely overcrowded with tourists, and you can't blame the natives for being upset about it.
Yeah, in a sense, but tourists bring income. There's
They
that.
do, yes, yeah,
You
absolutely.
can't
Yeah,
have it
you just
both
need to
ways.
manage it better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's
But to
my
be
world
honest,
problem.
to be fair and honest, that movement against tourism is rooted in the socialist and communist sort of way of thinking. There
Mhm.
was this book back in the early 90s about the tourist industry in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and the sort of eastern Canadian provinces, because they're quite picturesque. And the fishing had sort of collapsed, and people were looking for alternative ways to make money. And so one of the things they latched onto was tourism. And so a lot of little trinket shops popped up, and different kind of folksy things. And this academic wrote a book complaining about these terrible bourgeois little people trying to capitalize on tourism and promoting tourism when they should just do something else. I'm like, well, do what? Their
Like what?
fishery industry was destroyed. This is a way for little small entrepreneurs to make money over the year, and it introduces foreigners to the amazing geography and of Canada. But the academics saw this as a bad thing, and of course it was done from a neo-Marxist perspective. And so when I see that Spain is being governed by this radical socialist guy,
Yeah.
is it any wonder that it's these kinds of movements that are really protesting tourism? And to what end? To what end? You want to construct walls everywhere and not let anybody in or out? That's very Soviet.
And do you think, in the
We
United
didn't really have
States,
walls.
in the United States, every protest is completely non-organic. Okay, it's all organized and planned by all these thousands of NGOs funded by George Soros and other billionaires. Is that the same in Europe? Are there any actual organic protests still happening on the European continent? Because we have none in America at all.
I don't think so.
I don't know, but I know for sure that our latest protests were not organic. It
Yeah,
was so
yeah.
obvious that there's a group of people who really wanted to protest everything that had to do with the current government or the mafia. Nobody knows who the mafia actually is, but all they wanted was their party to win. And when this party very organically and very democratically did not win in the elections, they started planning new protests
Sure.
Why? I mean, we had normal elections. Your guys didn't make it.
Yeah. But it's important to protect democracy to overthrow the democratically elected government.
By
right?
being
That's-
totalitarian. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Anything to protect
Yeah,
democracy,
of course.
including killing it.
I think it was Gail asked who that academic was, and I believe it was Ian Mackay, and the book was called The Quest for the Folk or something like that. I had to read it a long time ago, and yeah.
You'd have
You-
never
you
done
can't win
so
with these people.
voluntarily.
No.
So what else did you want to talk about today? There were so many topics. Who wants to go?
I
Well,
know.
Let's start with a discussion of, everyone remembers the January 7th meeting, 4 days after they took out Maduro in Venezuela, at the White House, when ExxonMobil CEO Aaron Woods famously said that Venezuela was uninvestable for his country. And we talked about this then, and we discussed the fact that probably for ExxonMobil, with its own corporate risk profile, Venezuela in its state then on January 7th probably was uninvestable for ExxonMobil. And then on Friday, which was May 1st, May Day, when all the communists were out protesting, we read the news in the Wall Street Journal that ExxonMobil is suddenly interested in investing in Venezuela now. So I think that, well, I mean, is that really make Darren Woods a hypocrite? No, it just means the conditions in Venezuela have changed. And now it is investable now for ExxonMobil, the most risk averse of the major oil companies. And so they're all going to be in there because why? Because the prize is enormous. Okay. And, I mean, these companies are all about exploiting oil reserves for profit. And there's no bigger oil reserves on the face of the earth than there are in Venezuela. So all it took was a little changing the conditions, and suddenly Exxon's in. Anyway, that's my rant for today.
And maybe
David,
the surging international
David,
prices
do you
help.
think
Yeah. Yes,
for sure?
that too.
Do you think that Exxon is looking to maybe exploit some fields that are adjacent to what they're doing in Guyana?
Sure, of course. Absolutely. I mean, the Staybrook Formation doesn't end at the ocean border between Guyana and Venezuela. I mean, it extends well into it, just as it extends across offshore Suriname. And so, yes, of course they are, and that's the obvious target, I would think. But Chevron's a partner in that, 30% partner in that operation. And guess who else is a 20% partner? Is the Chinese National Oil Company. So, I mean, even though the Trump administration has been talking about trying to get China out of the Western Hemisphere, when they're a joint interest partner in an operation with Exxon and Chevron, they're probably going to remain in it, right? So, but yes, I think that's a big target for Exxon. They haven't said that, but that's my assumption.
Right. Okay. Because I didn't know if maybe if there's different elements within the extra heavy oil in the Orinoco belt versus doing this expansion maybe on the offshore. Maybe they have more control over the offshore development than they would on land. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they probably do. And, I mean, they're just such a logical partner with PDVSA in that offshore development because of the Guyana development. And, they're already over 1 million barrels a day in Guyana, offshore Guyana, and are going to be 2.5 million barrels a day by 2030 probably. And Guyana's going to be, this tiny little country with 800,000 people, is going to be a world oil power for the foreseeable future. It's really a pretty amazing development for that country.
I wonder if they're setting up a sovereign wealth fund like Norway.
Yes,
they should be.
For sure, absolutely. And they're converting their coal. They have 2 coal plants, I believe, in Guyana that they're going to convert to natural gas. And they're building wind and solar as well to supplement things. And, they're the fastest growing economy globally for the last 3 years running, and probably will be for the next 5 years. And so, I mean, it's great. It's wonderful for the people there, and the government there has been, I mean, they get criticism, obviously, but they seem to be doing a good job of ensuring that the wealth benefits the people there, which, doesn't always happen in developing countries. So it's really good to see it happening. And I think the presence of Exxon and Chevron in that development and all the attention that brings from global organizations and the regional Organization of American States and all that, helps to ensure that the government acts appropriately with, doing the right thing with the new wealth. And anyway, it's just been a big positive for the country, a huge positive for Exxon's bottom line. And so now I imagine it'll extend into Venezuela. Send in the tourists, says Patrick. I'm not sure there's a lot of tourist attractions in Guyana, but well, there probably are. I mean,
there could be.
Yeah, the rainforest in the southern part of the country is no doubt extremely beautiful, and I don't know what else might be there for tourists to do.
Now they can protect it.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike Brazil, their neighboring Brazil. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Just you can turn the rainforest into natural assets or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And trade carbon credits, right, from the absorption of carbon dioxide. But I was just going to take a shot at the UN because, they famously clear cut thousands of acres of rainforest to build that new highway from the airport into Belém to host the COP30 meeting anyway. So, I can't pass up an opportunity to take a shot at Antonio Guterres.
And you shouldn't.
The other quick thing I just wanted to bring up is Vicky Hollop, CEO of Oxy, who's been the most prominent woman CEO of a big oil company in the United States for the last, 15 years, announced Friday she's stepping down, and we wish her well. She's done I think she did a fine job for that company.
Okay,
that's it.
Tammy, you mentioned some pipeline between the US and Canada, Keystone XL Light.
Bridger.
Well,
yeah,
the Bridger expansion project. Yeah. So Trump signed a presidential permit authorizing the Bridger pipeline expansion, and it'll carry up to about 550,000 barrels a day of Canadian crude from the Montana border down to Guernsey, Wyoming, I think, which would boost Canadian exports by about 12% to the United States. So because it's so difficult to get another pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast, which is what this memorandum of understanding between Alberta and Ottawa was all around, the Alberta government is celebrating this idea because they've already built a lot of that pipeline on the Canadian side, which was supposed to be used for Keystone. And it's just kind of sitting there. So it would be great to be able to connect it and get that oil flowing south. And I know a lot of people are criticizing to some extent, this is Canada supposed to be diversifying its reliance on the United States, and this will just further increase that reliance. But, when you need to get more oil to the global market, and if Canada's only feasible route, unfortunately, is through the United States, that helps backstop the United States, and then they can export more. But I think one of the big criticisms is that quite often Canadian oil sells at a discount in the American market because we have no other outlet. So, there's trade-offs there of being able to increase production, increase exports, but then you're stuck with this kind of discounted situation. So we'll see what happens. It has to go through an environmental review, and the environmentalists are already trying to line up litigation. So even if it gets approval, I'm not sure how they could bypass whatever litigation the environmental groups put forward.
Right.
But one of the reasons why they chose this route is because it's it's parallel to existing infrastructure. So therefore, there's not a lot of new concerns with respect to the environment about, where it's going, pathways and this kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get it approved and all of that. They're hoping to have it operational by the end of 2028.
Yeah, it could go really fast because it's paralleling that existing line, It would only take
And
a
the terrain,
year and a half to build, right?
Yeah, the terrain's not that harsh, and it's actually not that long of a pipeline. I think it's something like 550 miles or something like that. So not excessively long. And I know that pipelines can be built rather quickly when the motivation is there.
Yeah. No, when I was at El Paso Corporation, we built a big pipeline from Wyoming across Utah into Oregon, and it took 6.5 years to get the permits in place and about 8 months to build it.
Right.
So,
Whoa.
I mean, yeah.
This sounds insane.
It's like the building is the easy part.
Yeah, the building's the easy part. It really is. Yeah. It's doing all the archaeological surveys and the rights of way and, resolving all the lawsuits from activists and of course in the United States there's a lot of Native American tribal lands that you also are dealing with another government with the Native American tribes, and so a lot of upfront work, and then the construction goes very quickly. This line is going to be 550,000 barrels of oil per day capacity. I think the reason they're calling it Keystone Light is because Keystone was going to be like 800,000 barrels, I think. So anyway, it's a big pipeline. What's amazing to me though is we talk about that as a big pipeline, and it is, but you have the Saudi Arabian pipeline with 7 million barrel a day capacity. Yeah. My understanding is there's 3 different pipelines, right, paralleling one another in that system. But still, that's still, what is that? That's 2.3 million barrels per day per line. That's incredible. Yeah. It's just an incredible line.
They actually migrated one of their liquids product line into a crude line so that they could get to the 7 million.
Okay.
So it was brilliant getting that done. When you take a look at the pipeline traffic and everything else that's going on around the world, the UAE leaving the OPEC last week was pretty big news as well too. And when you take a look at what they can do, they were limited by OPEC regulatory issues, production quotas by 3.5 million. Their infrastructure is geared to the 5 million, and they're outlying new pipelines and everything else. I mean, you look at where the UAE is right now, and there's a bunch of guppies. I mean, tankers all lined up to get oil there. So you've got the 3.5 million that they're still rolling out. I think it was very good for the UAE. I'm interested in the geopolitical fallout from that as well, because I believe that you've got the monetary issue of now who's controlling the global oil supply. It's going to be interesting.
Well, Tilak Doshi had an interesting article today or a couple days ago, where this whole past week in the UK media, it's been going on about how the UAE was fearing stranded assets and wanted to be able to pump as much oil as possible and reap the reward before all the demand destruction hits and it's all stranded and they won't have any money. And so he kind of takes apart that climate narrative, and he did it brilliantly. It was really good. And he talked about it being because of national self-interest and whatnot. But one of the interesting developments geopolitically is that at the same time that they withdrew from OPEC, the UAE pulled $3.45 billion out of the Pakistan National Bank. And Saudi Arabia had to come in and basically put $3 billion of its money into the National Bank of Pakistan. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting that they pulled that money out. Why would they do that? And then at the same time, Israel had given the use of the Iron Dome or whatever to the UAE. And now some are speculating that one of the reasons why UAE pulled its money out of Pakistan was they weren't happy with Pakistan being the sort of broker with Iran, felt that they should be taking a harder line against what Iran is doing. But it's interesting that it happened.
Stu, what do you think about that?
interesting.
About the future.
Pakistan thing.
I think Pakistan, considering Saudi Arabia also asked for their money back, saying we signed a deal with Pakistan for nuclear protection since Pakistan is a nuclear armed country, and Pakistan was siding with Iran. I believe that that is a real problem. So they've asked for their money back as well. You can't be a world power with nuclear and then side with Iran. I found it also very interesting that 72 tank trucks made it across the border, and Iran was putting it out that that was a major victory. Well, let me put it to you a little, in size makes a difference on tankers. That would be, in order to meet just several of the 7,000 to 8,000 trucks to meet one VLCC tanker. So it takes a lot of tankers in order to do that. And they're saying, well, what about exporting the Iranian oil through oil tankers to China? Well, they don't have that many, and it does take 15 days. I think it's a wonderful thing, but what people are not realizing or talking about is that the Iranian oil fields are low pressure, and they're filling up their storage.
Yeah.
So Goldman Sachs, as we were talking about before the show, had this. Let me remove this one and add this to the stage. Goldman Sachs again changes. They flip hourly. It seems like. I think Tammy, you made that comment, something like that. It was kind of fun. And I think when you take a look at the Strait of Hormuz impact on the world, I think the world is going to wake up and realize that energy security starts at home, and people are really looking at expanding their own local drilling programs. And this chart, for our podcast listeners, has the green line rolling all the way down, back down to $60 oil, back down into 2028. This is the optimum timeline.
It's an unrealistic case, though.
It's
Optimum.
perfectly unrealistic.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing out what I was trying to say, David.
Sorry.
And then if you go to this line up here, this is a potential line of $100 oil through 2028. Demand destruction is going to kick in globally, and the demand won't be there. So you've got this number as being way out of line as well, too. So you start
which
whittling
color line are you talking about? The red one?
The red one across the top.
Okay.
If you look at it, it spikes at $150 oil fairly soon, and then starts rolling back along to $100 in 2028. And it's going to be a very big thing. So we have to balance out the difference between, not all oil is created equally. You take a look at Venezuelan oil, it's the heavy oil. The sweet stuff is in the Middle East. And on chemically, Iranian oil is actually some of the best in the world, but it's low pressure. So they have now stuffed all of their storage. And I think the balancing act of anybody saying they know where oil prices are going to be, or actually trying to sell something. So paper is anywhere between 150. I mean, physical delivery of a barrel of oil is between $147 and $200, depending on where it is and what size tanker you got. And in the United States, we're a few weeks away from finding out reality. So in a few weeks from now, probably 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be able to see if California gets any tankers coming in from Asia.
Right.
So that is going to be a very entertainment moment for the United States when you have President Trump saying we're energy dominant.
except for California.
except for California. And then we are
Except for
energy
California.
dependent. Yeah. Oops. So right now, California cannot import any more diesel, jet fuel, or gasoline because they're maxed out on their import right now.
So what
It's
will happen when they
$15
run out?
gasoline, $15 diesel. Then you have demand destruction kick in. You
And
have
economic
absolute.
paralysis?
It's going to be cats and dogs sleeping with each other, and as they say in Ghostbusters, it's not a good thing.
No,
So-
they're going to have gas lines in California, unlike the rest of the country.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
Or
Arizona and
everyone-
Nevada will too, because they get their gasoline from California. It's insane.
So will Oregon and Washington
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're all tied together. So it's
Yeah.
half the United States is energy dependent. So when President Trump says we got all the oil we need, we got the wrong kind of oil, President Trump. So everybody's lining up to get sweet, light crude, but it's not what the refineries around the world. I think another question is, as this bifurcates into two different groups around the world, I had a wonderful talk with David Turver from the UK on, love that man. He is a pretty cool cat. And we talked about how the UK is really tripling down on stupid. And when you take a look at the article on his Substack is absolutely wonderful today that yesterday that he put out, that subsidies on wind in the UK, there's several of them, subsidies have paid more than the entire project cost. So, and they're continuing. It is a money wealth transfer that is now well documented. So anybody thinks that it's not needs to go look at facts.
Could I make a point?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
his report was amazing. That's all I want to say is, yeah.
Just on the Goldman Sachs thing, one thing that I noticed on that chart, you have 5 scenarios. Every one of them assumes full oil flows through Hormuz resume by the end of July. Now, that's quite an assumption at the
Yeah.
moment. That's quite an assumption. Even in the most optimistic case, I mean, even in the most pessimistic case, you're assuming full flows through Hormuz by end of July. Even the base case assumes oil price in excess of $80 through what, 2030, I think is where it goes. So, that's the base case. Actually, yeah, right around 80 through 2028, excuse me. So that's the base case. And again, that end of July, end of June, base case assumes end of June restoration of flows. That's quite optimistic. And the second point I want to make is about Stu's comments about Iran and low pressure formations, which is absolutely accurate and true, and not a concern with anything Stu said, but I'm concerned that a lot of people in the media are, pro-Trump fans are characterizing this outcome, if they do permanently lose a lot of their production ability in Iran, or for a long term lose it. That's not a win for the world, folks, because Iranian crude has been very crucial in supplying refineries all over the world with the grade of crude they need to be able to refine what? Diesel. And if you have a long-term shortage of that grade of crude, you're probably going to have a long-term price spike in diesel supplies globally. And that impacts every consumer good anyone buys anywhere at any time, because they're all transported to market on ships and planes and trains and trucks that run on diesel or some variety of diesel, like jet fuel. So anyway, I just wanted to make those 2 points. Great
And,
stuff, Stu.
I absolutely love Jeff. Goldman Sachs is not like E.F. Hutton. They're more like Guterres, who listens to them.
I have the same
and
question. Who even listens to them? Go on.
I'm just saying, I like the chart, Jeff, and so I use the chart just as a talking point. So I agree. I don't have any clue. So anyway,
But Stu, you said that people are going to start to see that energy security starts at home, and they'll do more domestic drilling, except of course the UK and the EU. So the UK, one of the things, someone sent me this lengthy tweet of some guy on X, where he was talking about the 40s oil pipeline system in the North Sea, and how this pipeline system connects all of the different little fields that have been developed so far, and keep shipping that oil to Aberdeen and then down to some of the refineries in England, the few that are remaining. And right now, 23% of UK liquids throughput goes through that pipeline. And they're looking there. It's the scheduled phase out is 2035, but there's estimates that it could be closing as early as 2028 due to like all these investment tax barriers and so on. So rather than, continuing the development and of the UK side of the North Sea, and it's substantial, they're doing nothing and wanting to increase the windfall taxes even more. So it'll be interesting to see what happens long term, even in the midterm, with this oil pipeline system, because the infrastructure is at risk from policy, not from geology or geopolitics. So it's an issue.
It is. And I think this goes back to my theory that the world is bifurcating into two groups. Those that follow energy security and energy policies and not net zero will be fiscally trading with each other, and they will be having growth in their GDP. They will be industrializing, and they will have happier citizens. The second camp that's going to be around the world is following net zero. And when you take a look at Muppets, leaders like Miliband, it's absolutely going to be horrific for those kind of leaders. The sad part is we've got Gavin Newsom has eviscerated the United States, western half of the United States, and has created a national security risk that is following net zero. Net zero is a wealth transfer.
But it's more than that. And China's playing both. So China, on the one hand, says that it's going to be net zero by 2060 or something like that. But at the same time, it's doubling down on coal and natural gas and building out a lot of nuclear and whatnot. At the same time, it's playing lip service to the whole net zero thing and selling all the materials and the solar panels and the wind turbine components and all of those different things to countries or areas like the EU and the UK that have gone down that pathway. So I think China's role in all of this is very fascinating, that they're playing both sides, instead of just, you can talk about it bifurcating, but China's playing both.
Can you trust anything China does when they were buying $20 oil from Venezuela and Iran and then turning around and selling inflated goods and services back to them, making money off of the people of Iran and Venezuela? I don't trust them.
Smart business.
Was a smart business move.
I like how you say this as if China is the only one being unethical and everyone else is so ethical, like the US ambassador to the EU threatening with less favorable conditions for buying energy commodities until you sign these trade deals. Too, everybody does it.
I know.
I mean,
the EU does it too. The EU does it too. They use their regulations, whatever is leverage.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're racketeers.
What about the US offshore wind lease cancellations? That's really fascinating.
Oh, yeah, what happened there?
It's kind of fun, actually.
Well, I mean, they weren't all canceled, were they? 2 of them have gone online this year. two big ones. One
Yep.
offshore New York, one offshore Massachusetts.
Yeah, Vineyard. And when you take a look at what's actually happening is there is a global discussion. I mean, we have a liability in the United States for $89 billion worth of land reclamation just for the wind farms. The blades themselves, I'm tired of looking at them in Texas. It is absolutely disgusting when you take a look at the wind and the renewable. 95% of the solar panels that are destroyed in a Texas wind hailstorm, I mean, they don't last 30 years. And you take a look at a wind farm lasting 30 years, I'd like to see that happen. Maintenance wise, they're being replaced after 3. And you take a look at that, that is not renewable energy. That is not sustainable. The treadmill that we're on renewable wind and solar, we've spent $10 billion on renewable wind and solar to gain 3% in energy. The world runs on diesel. The world runs on, energy. It doesn't run on electricity.
Well, I would add to that, some of the reasons, the rationale given for canceling some of these offshore wind leases was national security, that there were maritime risks, that there was interference potentially with military and shipping operations, and you could mask drones and you could mask submarines and whatnot.
Yep.
So if that's true, and I believe it is, it's one of the reasons why some of the wind projects were scuttled in the Baltics off the coast of Sweden. Then what about the ones that are already there? What happens with them? Doesn't this maritime risk and the military interference, doesn't that apply to the ones that are in operation or have just come online?
That's a very good question.
It certainly does. Yes, absolutely. And in fact, the one offshore New York was one of the ones the Pentagon objected to, but the courts forced the administration to permit them to move ahead and open it. And then at the end of the day, the Trump administration decided, well, instead of letting the courts rule, we'll just trade allowing that wind farm to reopen with Governor Kathy Hochul in exchange for her letting a couple of natural gas pipelines be built in New York. And that was the trade. And so Pentagon, what
Are
the
they actually
Pentagon
being
wants
built?
didn't matter at the end of the day. I'm sorry, what?
That's
Tammy?
concerning.
Yeah, it is.
Did they
concerning. It's
actually
very
build
concerning.
those pipelines? Have they gone?
One of them is kicking off the one that's going to deliver natural gas to Manhattan, which is desperately needed because they have a real shortage there. And then there's another one planned to take Marcellus gas into New England that still is awaiting sign off from the state of New York on some permits.
Right. We'll see, I guess, if they get the sign off on there.
Yeah. So, it's either that or keep importing LNG from Algeria and Russia.
It's the same permitting outfit that is in California that by law they were supposed to issue 2,000 permits to drill wells. Still waiting on 4 of them.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
going to happen.
No.
I mean, who's going to want to drill 2,000 wells in the current regulatory environment in California? I mean, nobody's even going to apply for 2,000 permits. I mean,
Well, they have, believe it
no,
or not.
they haven't. They haven't applied for 2,000. They've applied for a few hundred, but not for 2,000.
Yeah, but they've only approved 3. I mean, this is
and it's
ridiculous.
never going to get
course.
approved. And yeah, I mean,
Why
It's
do
a
they
joke.
even bother applying?
Hmm?
Why do
What?
they even bother applying?
I don't know. It's a mystery to me. The last oil company I worked for made the fatal decision to invest in California, bought one of the big producers in Kern County, and ended up bankrupt for their troubles. So I don't know why anybody would invest in California. Crazy. I mean, it's just crazy
I
place. to
agree.
try to
Until
do
things change there, what would be the point?
Yeah.
It's just, then take that same philosophy, since California is following the EU and the UK and Canada. The only saving grace for Canada is our great snow Texans up in Alberta. Love all of them. Give a shout out to all the Albertans up there.
Yeah.
The regulatory
Yeah,
overreach is absolutely crazy.
Somebody
Yeah,
says
you know,
California is making
California's
so
in
much
trouble.
money.
Oh, and speaking of Alberta, how about Shell's big investment in the Montney play up there with the acquisition of ARC, I think it is.
Arc
15 billion.
Resources,
Yeah,
yeah.
ARC Resources, $15 billion acquisition. That's a big bet on a. I mean, the Montney is an incredibly prolific formation. There's a lot of gas up there.
Yeah, that's more on the BC side, but I think when in the assets that they got through the purchase, there were some oil assets in Alberta as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But Montney is mostly in British Columbia. It's a
right.
fantastic formation.
Yeah.
But you got to get it out, right? Like like right now, there's LNG Canada, and they want to do what is it? The Prince Rupert Gas Trunk Line, the PRGT. And it had received approval some time ago, and then there was like all these delays and everything. And those approvals do expire, but they got an extension on the approvals. And then they started to dig a little bit in order to ensure that that approval would be sustainable for getting other approvals to actually build. But now the environmentalists are suing them to say that the permits had expired and this is all fake and they should have to go through the process again, which takes literally years and years to go through the process. So, you know, they want to build an additional pipeline that would go through Prince Rupert, that would come out in one of the estuaries, I guess, and it's a project called Cassis-Lissoms, and that would really increase the amount of LNG coming out from the Montney to the Pacific coast and then be exportable to Japan or other places in Asia and India. So we'll see what happens. Canada's always open for litigation.
I want to comment on one comment here. Carrie Lee says California is not hell, and I totally agree with that. Geographically, the landscape in California is one of the most beautiful places in the United States. It's completely understandable why so many people want to live there. But your government is hell, okay? And the crazy voting decisions voters make in California, election after election after election, electing the same people who are destroying your state. That's what's bringing hell to the state of California. But I love California. I mean, I've visited there many times. It's an incredibly beautiful place that's being destroyed by idiotic politicians. Yeah. That's my rant for today. And you're about to elect another one. You're about to put this what's his name, Becerra. You're going to elect this guy. I mean, he's Gavin Newsom's errand boy, okay, and has been for the last decade.
Is there no one else running to be mayor of
That's
LA?
Continuity of policies.
Well, the communist, yeah. I mean, the current communist in charge of Los Angeles is running for re-election, but she's not communist enough, and so they're going to elect this lady from India, who failed to end homelessness in India, and then came to Los Angeles and has failed to end homelessness in Los Angeles, and now she's going to get elected mayor because they keep failing upward, which is what Democrats always do in our country. So she's going to be the next mayor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so
maybe California is hell.
I have two things. One is the UK ban on air vented tumble dryers, which they announced last week. So now they're only you can't have a condenser dryer, you can't have a natural gas one, you can't have a hot air vented tumble dryer. You have to have a heat pump tumble dryer. And everyone's like, what are you doing? You're taking away our choice. Well, yes, of course, because now the UK is in alignment with the EU, because the EU banned all that stuff last year. So even though the UK has Brexit, they're doing all these little things to align regulation and legislation with the EU. And then Starmer's there at this meeting in Armenia, along with Mark Carney, who's not even a European country, but he's there as an observer, and he gets to make speeches and everything. But Starmer's there negotiating for the UK to pay the EU £1 billion a year.
For what?
For what? I don't know. I don't know.
What?
But it's in order to ease the trade restrictions and movement of peoples and blah blah blah. I don't know, but it's insane. And then Canada's over there in the EU, talking about how we have to have enhanced strategic cooperation. And then the EU back in March passed this recommendation to enhance all the connections with Canada. They're doing all this push polling, a YouGov poll in the EU to see which countries, what they think about Canada joining. There's been 4 other polls in Canada. What do you think about Canada joining the EU?
You can't join the EU. It's Canada. It's not in Europe.
I know it, but they don't care. Finland is talking about it. Macron is talking about it. Von der Leyen mentioned it. And it's like, why? So Carney's like, Trump is bad saying 51st state. We'll never be a part of America, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then he's there in Europe saying, yeah, we'll be the 29th province or something. You know, it makes giving up your sovereignty to the bureaucratic morass that is Brussels. How is that helpful?
Well,
I hear they're really good at bureaucracy in Canada too. So, maybe they're kindred spirits or something.
He says we're the most European, non-European country in the world. And I'm like, that's not a good thing.
Well, but if you're like Carney, one of the architects of Agenda 2030 at the WEF, it's beautiful. It's perfect. It's completely consistent.
Speaking of the World Economic Forum and the UN, I was reading this morning that the UN is about to run out of complete money and total bankruptcy. Couldn't happen to a bunch of nicer folks.
Yeah, but that won't happen either.
Yeah, but Canada's going to be stepping in.
They're demanding billions in unpaid UN fees from the US. How do you guys feel about that?
I think we should unpay more.
I think we should throw them out of I think we should throw the UN out of the US.
I do too. I think we should implode the headquarters and throw everybody out. That's what I think about the UN. It's
let
one
the
of the
UN
most pernicious anti-democratic organizations on the face of the earth.
And they have brought more damage through NGOs into the United States in trying to take us down. So why do we want to pay for people that want to take us down?
Yeah.
Or we could turn the UN building into a tourist attraction. I mean, why not? Or we could let the Mayor Mondami turn it into New York City's first publicly run grocery store and see how that works out.
Ooh, snap.
Hey, it's not going to be open till 2028. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah. Let me ask this as before we close out, and that is with President Trump saying that we don't, with Germany, the Prime Minister Merz saying that we don't like the U.S., President Trump goes, okay, we start reducing our troops. The amount of money that the local troops spend at the Ramstein Air Force Base hits $1 billion in that local market. And you start taking a look at Air Force bases in local markets, they kind of like them. So the local folks like having the air base there. I have a feeling we will see the U.S. severely looking at how much we work with the UN, and you're going to see even bigger drawdowns around the world, which I'm all for. Reducing our military footprint around the world is what I'm all in on.
That would be great. That would be great. Yeah.
I think
so
it would,
then,
yeah. Anyway, it's all a relic of World War II.
So it is, but I think it's also a relic of when the UK withdrew from being the policeman of the seas in the world, and then America stepped into that in 1971, and then who's going to replace that vacuum when the US pulls out? Are we going to see China then being the policeman of the world? Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, Europe should be careful what they ask for in that regard. The whole reason for the Germany decision is the fact that the United States pays to maintain those bases in those countries to enable it to project power forward, right,
Yeah.
internationally.
Yeah.
And if we can't use the air bases when we need them, when we're engaged in a war, regardless
What's
of
the
anyone's
point?
opinion on how it started or its mission, then it's pointless to continue to spend $100 billion a year or whatever the number really is to maintain those bases because they're, the governments won't let you use them. Germany clearly wants Ramstein and the other U.S. Army and Navy insular Air Force installations in their country to help boost their economy. And that's not why they're there. It's not why the U.S. invested in them in the first place. So, Mr. Murch needs to be really careful what he asks for.
I think he just
Might
found
get
out.
it.
Yeah, he might get it.
You might get it.
Well,
Oh boy, what a way to end the story here. Sorry. I need to shut up.
anyone has any last words?
Nope.
It's going to be a better week than this, folks. I'm really not in a bad mood at all. So
Let me just add to the stage here, and everybody needs to go to Irina Slav .substack.com. Everybody needs to go to the Nemeth report.substack.com. Everybody needs to go to blackmon.substack.com and the energy newsbeat.substack.com.
Awesome.
Thanks for all the comments.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
thanks
great
for all the
week.
comments.
Bye.